It's a kind of magic. Obviously, the first thing I think of, if I had to look at this, if someone else had done it, I'd be thinking of the song that Queen does with the same name. And ironically, if you look at some of the lyrics in the Queen song, it's actually quite interesting. Some of the mentions that it makes in its own reference in a sense. But what I want to get into, it's it's broadly based, what we're going to look into. And no doubt would appear controversial because it probably is controversial. But I think it's important to, in our ever ongoing mission to expand and just get a broader view of what's going on around us and what's going on in the gospel, what's going on in the scripture, in the text. I think we need to look at some of these very strange and possibly disturbing concepts sometimes. And that's where we're going to go tonight. So logically, the first thing I think we need to do is, if we're going to use a word like magic, we're going to have to start getting some kind of idea of what we're talking about here. So here's just one of the many definitions that I found, one that I think is a nice and simple enough way to consider. So magic, this is according to Britannica. Magic, a concept used to describe a mode of rationality or way of thinking that looks to invisible forces to influence events, affect change in material conditions, or present the illusion of change. Okay, so that's a nice broad-based description of what it can be. It's a mode of rationality, I agree, a way of thinking, looks to invisible forces. Give me another, if we chose a synonym for invisible forces that influence events, what words can we use to describe that? Invisible forces influencing events. What words come to mind for either of you?
Well, that one, I don't know if this is the right one, but it's not attributing, but the occult, isn't that the appearance
Right? Yeah.
of all that of falsehood?
That's part of it. That's a perfect example. Anything else?
It could be, what do you call it? Local influence, like the state of mind of your environment.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of definitions. I was kind of hoping one of you, maybe you two, scared or if, you know, like not comfortable to want to say it. Remember, if we're asking a way of thinking that looks to invisible forces to influence events, how about religion? How about our own faith, Judaism, Christianity? Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah.
Hey, what? Let's do like a little bit of a social experiment here. Kathy, you responding quite with a bit of a nervous like something there. What is it that didn't put that idea at the forefront of your mind when I asked the question originally? I think I know
Well,
what.
magic. When you were asking about magic, I
There
just
we go.
think,
Right. So Kathy, you see, and I think Dad, the same was for you. You see the word magic.
yeah.
And then even though I'm saying, which was kind of a hint I was giving, it looks to invisible forces to influence events. That describes Christianity and Judaism perfectly.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just apply to the rest of the definitions here. Affect change in material conditions or present the illusion of change. Okay, more the affect change, but even or present the illusion of change. We can find evidence of that in scripture too, where there's been illusions given to confuse. And I mean, Paul even says it, that God will send a strong what? Delusion on people.
Could you say faith as well as another?
Oh, right, good. But faith is still placed in what? The expectation of invisible forces to influence events. So yes, Kathy, you can. You know what? I'm giggling here thinking of this. I almost feel like I can say, thanks for joining tonight. I think we've already made a powerful statement for tonight that effectively, even our religion, as pure as it can be, directed to God, either through what Christianity wants to call itself and Judaism, is a form of magic. Wouldn't that be enough for you to stay up all day just scratching your head over, but saying, oh my word, by the definition of it, that's right. What do you think of that? Can you see the point I'm making with that somewhat comedic statement?
Well, you would add another qualification to your one of many, and that would be you then are a magician.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to explain to you, Dad, exactly why I think I am a magician. Um, and that might make you want to make anyone who listens to this, even at the recording, giggle nervously too. So are we
Magic.
intrigued? Tell me you're intrigued by this, because I had a blast thinking of the reactions that were going to come to this teaching tonight. Dad, you were going to say something?
You could apply for citizens for a residency in New Zealand and say one of your many occupations are that you're also a magician.
Yeah.
You might be easier than putting there as a pastor or rabbi.
Yeah. And keep that thought in mind now, because I'm glad you picked up on that. Because when we go further here now, I'm going to explain to you by the end of it exactly why that is a fair statement. So already you realize that your brain is now snapping, like firing, electricity off in your head, trying to get to every bit of information you've got and what you think magic is. And now, your brain's probably saying this flipping annoying man, Darren, is now causing us to rewire everything again because now I'm telling you to reconsider what you think magic is. And that is part of what I'm doing. And I'm going to say to you that there's not a whole lot I'm going to say to you in this teaching. There will be some that's new. Some of what I'm going to show you stuff that's always been there. And as sure as we're sitting here now, I hope that one of you are going to say at the end, my word, it's been there all along. So if it does happen, please do me that favor. Say it by the end. It was there all along. If I actually show you what's been there all along and you can honestly see it for yourself. Okay, so our first little title slide here, before the beginning. So I want to look a little bit at something that happens before the beginning. Listen to this. This might surprise you. Abracadabra. You've both heard that word used before, right? I mean, I think just about everyone knows that word. Who are most famously attributed with saying those words?
Isn't it the Persians with magicians? But I mean, wasn't in
Genie in a bottle or something.
yes,
Or,
yeah.
In modern culture, aren't you aware of magicians standing on a stage and before they pull the rabbit out the hat or do something, they say,
yeah,
abracadabra.
that's
Okay, listen to this. Abracadabra belongs to the Aramaic, a Semitic language that shares many of the same grammar rules as Hebrew. Well, would you look at that? So abracadabra in Aramaic is linked to Hebrew. Says Cohen in When the Crowd, Abra is the Aramaic equivalent of the Hebrew Avra, meaning I will create. While Kadabra is the Aramaic equivalent of the Hebrew Kedubar, meaning as was spoken. Together the phrase means I will create as has been spoken. A fitting thing for a magician to say before pulling a rabbit out of his hat. And look where I got this reference from, to show you I'm not going mad. Haaretz. This is a Jewish publication. So not only have I told you that magic is part of your faith in believing in the God of Israel, I'm now even telling you that the most famous word and concept in illusionary entertainment magic, relating specifically to doing something that is actually should be impossible to do, namely calling a rabbit into existence out of nothing. Because you get that, right? Rabbits don't grow in hats. I'm trusting you both knew that. So if a magician is pulling a rabbit out of a hat, why is it that the kids will be amazed by that? because that's not natural, is it? And what do we define something as when it leaves the realm of the natural? What do we moved into then?
Supernatural.
There we go. It's actually quite simple, isn't it? And what does the switch over imply? When you leave the natural order and you see things in the natural realm that are not natural, then we go into the supernatural. And really, what it implies is what makes sense on this side of the line doesn't make sense on the other side of the line. But when we bring things from that other side of the line into this side of the line, what have we actually done with reality? We've manipulated it. Does that make sense? So if
Yeah.
you can do
Yeah.
things that don't make natural sense, you've just manipulated reality. Now, automatically, that asks a very big question, right? Who are you? If I said to either one of you now, have a look at an item on your desk or wherever you're sitting, and I say, in 3, 2, 1, it's gonna lift up off the table, levitate, swirl around your head 3 times, then come back and sit down on the table. Would you find that to be a normal activity?
Absolutely not. In fact, it'd be scary.
But why, Kathy? Why would it be scary?
It's against the natural law that
Right,
we live in.
right. Now, here's this crazy part, Kathy. It's not impossible that that could be done,
No. Yeah.
but it would just imply that something of a supernatural nature is taking place.
And that would imply that it's not of God, rather the of the devil. To
Possibly,
me,
but watch this. Would you say the things Moses did in front of Pharaoh was natural?
no.
And what could Pharaoh's magicians do? For the most part.
Yeah, they could copy it, couldn't they? Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So the question is, did Moses do magic? I'm not laughing because I think this is hilariously funny. I'm just laughing because I can imagine what this would sound like to people hearing it for the first time. But here's one of the first opportunities for you to say, oh my word, it's been there all the time. If what Moses does is not natural, if it is the definition of manipulating anything in the natural realm, what is Moses doing?
Well,
Magic.
in his case, we think he's um, allowing God to use him.
Right.
But if
But
it was
Kathy,
normal circumstances of us seeing someone do that, I would think it was demonic.
right. But effectively, at the base level, it's a form of magic.
Yeah.
And you can see that I am trying to expand your and my dad and whoever's going to listen to this into the futures idea of what the word magic should actually be allowed to mean.
Right.
And I'm saying to you that if you don't allow that word magic to occupy more positive or even neutral space, I'm going to say what I so often say, your gospel is going to be diminished. And I'm going to prove that to you by the end of this. Okay, next
Okay.
statement I'm making here. We are not alone. Now, this isn't going to be news to either of you. Yeah, I'm going to show you a little bit of a sneak peek of the series that I should be working on over this holiday now that I want to work on and get done. As easy as 1, 2, 3, the Bible overview course. So what I do is I take the Bible in the whole Bible, divided into 3 sections, not to challenge the idea of the Tanakh as the Old Testament or the Brit Hadashah as the New. I'm not rearranging that. It's just for a systematic way of study to break down those 2 parts in a simpler, easier way to understand. And here's a section out of it. The word nachash or serpent Yes, Genesis 3, verse 1. The Nachash serpent was more crafty than all the beasts of the field. Okay, and there's Nachash, there it is in the Hebrew. Okay, and then it goes, oh yeah, it says the Nachash serpent was more arum, crafty than all the beasts of the field. So there's the word arum, and this is what's interesting. Interestingly, in biblical Hebrew, there's a fascinating, strong etymological connection between Nachash and supernatural forces. The biblical Hebrew word for sorcery or witchcraft is, that's right, the same as the word for serpent, meaning Nachash. Can you get that? So the word that actually depicts the serpent in the garden is the exact same word used for what? Supernatural forces? And even more crazy, the biblical word, the Hebrew word for sorcery or witchcraft is serpent, Nachash. Did you find that interesting?
Yeah. Wow.
And here's when you look at the word arum in the Hebrew and it's used of the serpent, it actually implies some underhanded activity and action, very negative occultic undertones and so on. And then here's what I find interesting, that in describing Adam and Eve, they were both arumim. They were both having the same kind of natural association as what was described of the serpent. Isn't that also interesting? Like, what's Moses getting at? What connection is he making between Adam and Eve and the serpent? And let's see, Professor Rachel Edelman says the following: even before Adam and Eve's eyes were opened with the knowledge of good and evil, the primordial serpent seemed to have this knowledge. So remember, this is the thing about knowledge. We'll have to talk about what knowledge is in this context, and expresses its wisdom, there we go, or cunning. Arum, that's part of where the word arum will come from too, through the manipulation of language, distorting God's command. Didn't God say that you shall not eat of the trees of the garden? Look what it says: expresses its wisdom or cunning through what? The manipulation. What did we say the definition of magic was? It's manipulating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Therefore, isn't any marketing activity, anytime anyone tries to convince or influence anyone in any context, aren't you effectively manipulating emotions and thought processes? Am I not doing it right now? See, you can do it for good or for bad, right? I mean, you could do it for either one, but what are you effectively doing?
Manipulating. Yeah.
Right. And again, the word manipulation appears to sound like negative, right? Because that's what it often gets used as. But manipulation in and of itself is a neutral term, isn't it, actually?
Although you tend to use influence if you want it to be positive.
Yeah, if you want. But in all honesty, if you go to a doctor or to a chiropractor, what do they do to your body? They
Yeah.
don't influence your body. They manipulate parts of your
Yeah.
body.
That's more physical, isn't it then?
Right. So it's the same. It's the idea of affecting change. That is what I mean.
Yeah.
Darren, you
Yes.
know, more, I mean, how many TV ads have you heard, radio ads that claim to do fantastic stuff? And I've been following it for quite a while on the claims. So we've got a consumer program called, what's that thing called? Oh,
Echo,
someone,
is it?
the one where they, if people, Fair Go, it's called Fair Go.
Okay.
And the funny thing is that in New Zealand law, and I dare say everywhere else, there is legally allowed a certain amount of falsehood in regarding the claims of the product
Right.
or whatever.
Marketing.
Marketing. So marketing, they do tell lies, and there's a percentage of lie that they can tell. And I think the consumer is expected to read between the lines. And that's frightening in a way when you think of it. Eh? that I
Of
can go
course.
and claim that I've got this wonder cure, snake oil, that'll do X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
And I think for many people, a lot of that is auto suggestion.
Right.
And what I do find is a lot of products being sold, especially on the health food side and supplement side, where they rely heavily on testimonies of people. And those products seem to sell better than any others, you know. It's just an
Of
observation.
course.
And so
That's
there's
that
trickery
makes sense.
involved in that. So there's a bit of magic going on there too,
Right.
because there's claims made. Now the funny thing is, one of these products are like a oil, fish oil or something that they've got in that. And Darren, they give you a capsule, and that capsule's containing micronutrients and stuff. And then I think that little capsule changes your whole day and makes your joints, and it's a wonder cure. It does all of this, and then I just wonder, how do they improve on what God's already done? But then your mother will say to me, for instance, but it's because we're eating so much junk food and those
Well,
nutrients are not found. But you see, it's all trickery, and it's all like magic in a way,
it
really.
is. That's what it is. And again, like I
And
say, we're all influencing each other all the time. We're trying to.
but Darren, because we are such hopeful people in these times, we're looking for a snake oil cure
Oh,
for
yeah.
almost anything, whether it be finance or you name it, whether it be giving the pastor an extra 10% on my tithe this month, because if I give, I will receive. So it's like
Right.
playing the
Exactly.
spiritual lotto. So a lot of it is all, we want to influence what is not happening in the real world. And so we almost blackmail God by doing good stuff to get an extra reward. So we trying to manipulate the supernatural as well to our
There
own
you go.
advantage
Exactly. Exactly that.
by
So it's another form of magic.
appeasing the gods. Yeah.
Another manipulation is music.
Oh,
Music,
yes.
yeah, used to affect everything. And often you don't even notice it behind adverts and such.
Kathy,
Uh,
what's the name of the world's most powerful media place for making movies?
Hollywood, is it?
Right. And you know what Hollywood means, right? I don't know if you know this.
No, I don't.
You know that the Holly, which is what my daughter's name is, in this case, it's a bit, you don't want to make these associations always. Holly
Yeah.
is the type of wood that was used to make wands.
Oh,
Look at the name, Holly
oh yeah.
wood.
Oh,
The idea is literally, and if you look at Disney's old, I think it's Disney's older, like show reel openers when they do their showing their label, their logo. I'm sure
yeah.
it was Disney. They had the fairy Tinkerbell, and what did she do? I'm sure she held a wand that she
She did.
tapped,
She did.
and then you hear the
A wand
magic.
with a star on and
Right?
distribute fairy dust.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And Hollywood does that powerfully so. And the
Yeah.
question is not, is it wrong? We are made for these things to influence us. So it's not that being influenced or to being able to be influenced is negative. The question always is going to be is what and how are you using that power, and what are you doing with your ingrained, how do I call it? What's the word I'm looking for here? Susceptibility. That's always what it's going to be about. Like, what are you doing with your susceptibility? And what are the people who have the power to influence, like me? I'm doing it right now. I'm not even going to hide. I'm doing it. Kathy, you love my graphics. I do that
Yeah.
intentionally for two reasons. I love being creative with this stuff. So logically, it's that. But I am literally manipulating. I am. not in a
You're
negative
telling a
way.
story before it happens, aren't you?
Right. And I'm deliberately wanting to excite your imagination or sometimes make you panic or make you excited or make you wonder and take you into a mysterious place. I'll tease things out. I'm not hiding it. I'm telling you that's what I do.
Yeah.
And when you point out that I'm doing it, I don't make like I'm not. And that's how you know this isn't occultism. I'm not hiding it. I'm telling you what I'm doing. Okay, so let's look at this. Remember what I said, the section that we're in now is we are not alone. Remember what abracadabra meant? It will come into being because it's been spoken, right? That's what it meant. What does that make you think of? Something being coming into being that was spoken. What's the most obvious thing we think back to? The most original.
Creation of the world
There we
and
go.
man.
So what is abracadabra defining creation? Well, it sounds
Yes.
like God did magic then. am I am I redeeming the term magic yet for either of you? I hope so. Now I'm not
Yeah.
obviously
That,
saying there aren't bad things in this, and I do understand the common use of words has heavy weight in people's minds, but there's a reason why I'm doing this, and I'm going to show it to you. So let's
so
read this.
Darren,
Yes.
in a way, Satan trying to usurp God's authority with his rebelling, and even after time, even what he did with Jesus on the temple, with the
Right.
temptation, that was all trying to reenact what God had done. So
Right.
to a lesser degree, the David Copperfields of this world are making a living out of, almost in a way, trying to mimic what God did at creation.
Right. Now, here's the
Not
thing.
getting too heavy.
You're on the right track. So let's quickly not miss a good opportunity with what you're saying there now. Satan is trying to act like God, right? What did I just tell you was the original meaning of the word nachash or serpent? It related to witchcraft.
Yeah, it was more crafty than the beasts in the
Right.
field.
So he's using manipulation of all kinds of things. He clearly manipulated Adam and Eve, but he didn't only manipulate that, he could manipulate nature. Now, remember what I've got to get into this. Maybe, okay, Dad, please, after I've explained this slide, just make sure I pick up on what I'm saying to you now, because I don't want to miss the opportunity of what you've opened up, and I'm glad you did. So let's read this quickly. Many Jews of the Second Temple period sought an explanation for the hardships of this world, whether political or personal, relating to disease, family trouble, sin, war, or any other manifestation of evil. They found an opening for such an explanation in emphasizing the idea that the divine realm is in fact populated with multiple beings, not all of them constantly operating in the same direction and for the same motives. Now, so in other words, the Second Temple period of Jews um, wanted to find answers for everything that's difficult and the idea of evil in the world. The way they chose to explain that is to say there's multiple beings and their motives aren't all the same. Simple enough to understand. The more important thing I want to say over and above that now is, what is another name for the time of Jesus, the time that he was around in? What's the label that gets used for it?
Is it the common era or something? No.
No, it's on the screen, Kathy. It's the Second
Oh,
Temple period.
oh, sorry. Oh, is it? I haven't
Isn't
heard
that
that.
interesting? So
Yeah.
this Dr. Jonathan Bendov, which is not a, I don't believe him to be a Messianic Jew, is basically telling you what was the primary idea in the time of Jesus. And he's basically telling you this is where the idea of multiple supernatural beings, Nephilim, demons, all of this exploded and found the most literature and the most activity comes about at this time. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That at the time Jesus comes to earth as the manifestation of God. Let's quickly find another definition for virgin birth. Couldn't we call that a form of magic?
You would, because it's not
It
of the
manipulated the
human.
natural order.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Another word I've got for magic is deception.
right, and it can be used for deception, but magic is not, or deception is not a synonym for magic. It can be a
No.
result of the negative side of it, yes. Without question, it can be, and is very often, in fact, used that way. So there's no doubt of that. So now let's go back to what I pointed out with my father, with what he said there. Satan was there at the beginning, and obviously he was there before the beginning. You both know, and you'll see it in the as easy as 1, 2, 3 course. I'm going to nail this issue home incredibly before we go very far in the series, is to say to you again that the fallen celestial rebels play a very important role in the story of creation. That's not spelt out by Moses because he doesn't need to, because all of the oral traditions and other writings, of course, attested to, I mean, it's overwhelming the amount of information. So the point is Moses didn't need to spell that all out because the people knew that stuff already. And yes, part of what gets said in that, part of what gets said is that those angels got to see, those fallen beings got to see the secrets, so to speak, of the universe that God had put into place.